Turn your microphone on, Paul.
Oh, okay. Meeting's been called to order at 5 o'clock. Can you hear me if I just sit like this? Okay. Roll call, please.
Chair Paul Danublio,
Here.
Commissioner Mike Blair,
Here.
Vice Chair Nikki Seegers,
Here.
Commissioner Rhiannon Turley. Here. We have a quorum.
We have a quorum. Thank you very much. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have the minutes of January 25 of 2022 to approve. Do I hear a motion to approve those minutes or any?
So moved.
So moved.
I'll second.
Second. Any questions, any comments on it? None? Moved and approved.
No, you got to vote on it, Paul.
Pardon? Oh,
You have to
yeah, we
vote
gotta
on it.
vote that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you. That way, I'll be ready when we have 6 people. Public comments, do we have anybody here for public comments? Nika, anybody sign up?
No, we do not.
Sorry about that. I think we should start serving coffee and donuts.
That's a great idea.
We have one item of old business. Staff will present a update on the window decals. I requested this as some old business that we had from the previous years. Rich?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Several years ago, when Bill Schilling was the liaison to the commission, he was involved in, along with our Economic Development Department and Gary Kellogg, in placing several of these photo stickers or photo images in different downtown windows, most notably at the 911 Center down here at 5th and Beale, and some other locations downtown. I understand that they've also done some work out at the airport now that the city has that airport lounge that's out there. There's some photos in that area as well. This was really just a city project. It wasn't really a program. The city paid for all of it. It's not, and I did have a conversation with Gary Kellogg as Bill has retired. He just indicated that it's just something that they have paid for over the years. It's not really ongoing, but if someone wanted to resurrect it, place them in other places, we could certainly bring it back if that was something you're interested in doing.
What's the city's feelings on this? Do they wish to continue? I understand they're quite expensive.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what the cost was for those. I couldn't really speak for, I imagine it would fall under the Economic Development Department because that's who Bill was working with Gary Kellogg, so it would be something that I imagine would come out of that department's budget, and I haven't talked to Gary Kellogg about that.
But we don't have any dog in that fight, do we?
No.
Except to the extent that it does promote the downtown history as well as other parts of the city as well. So, but if there's any new information that would be of interest to you, we would certainly bring that back to you. If they decide to do other locations, we can certainly bring that information to you so you're aware of it.
Okay, right. Bill mentioned it several times during these meetings.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering, I never knew who was sponsoring it, who was funding it.
Yeah, it was the city.
So it was the city totally, because
Yeah.
our immense budget that we have wouldn't be able to support it, would it?
Right.
Okay.
Mhm.
Hey, thank you very much.
Sure.
We do have one new item of business. It is a change to the historic overlay Zone C. The whole thing? It's a request from Lenore Knudsen, an applicant and a property owner, for the review and approval of a development within the historic overlay zone on property located at 207 Andy Devine to 217 Andy Devine in Kingman, of course. The proposal would create a vintage Airbnb Airstream community and would renovate 2 existing buildings on the property.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, this is a project proposed in the downtown area known as Tin Can Alley. It will be located between 2nd and 3rd Street on the north side of Andy Devine. The applicant in this case is Lenore Knudsen. And the request, again, is for a project that would be at 207 and 217 East Andy Devine Avenue. There's some applicable sections of the zoning code. For some reason, I'm not able to get this larger. It's not seen. There we go. Okay. There are a number of sections of the zoning code that are applicable to this particular project. First of which is that it does lie within the historic overlay zone, the HOZ zone. So there is a section in our code that creates the process for your consideration of this project. That's the first item on there. We also have within our zoning code different locations in which RV parks are permitted. Technically, under our zoning code, it is an RV park, but it's not a traditional park, as I'll explain in a moment. And RV parks are allowed by conditional use permit. This will, I should say as an aside, this project will still have to go before the Planning and Zoning Commission after your review in the next couple of months for the CUP approval. Also within our zoning code, we have development standards for RV parks. This section was recently amended by the city council to allow this particular property to be considered for this particular development. We also have within our zoning code definition of terms, including what it actually is a recreational vehicle, what is a recreational vehicle park, as well as travel trailer. And then we also have within our code the historic district overlay map, which, as I mentioned, this property falls within. So the property itself, this is an aerial view of the site. Again, you have 2nd Street on the left, 3rd Street on the right there. So on the north side, the post office is just to the east, and the car wash is to the west. There is utilities in the area, water and sewer, mainly in the alley. Again, this is a historic district overlay map. You kind of see where the property is in relation to those boundaries. It's on the north side of the district. Property is currently zoned T5MS, which is a transect zone that was adopted with the new zoning code. The property to the north is zoned T5G, which is another transect zone. That's a commercial area along Beale Street. And then across the street on the south side of Andy Devine, it's zone C3, which is the railroad property. So this is the concept plan the applicant has provided for your consideration. The development would be known as Tin Can Alley, which would have up to 8 vintage, refurbished, ground set Airstream trailers in an RV park type setting for short-term Airbnb type rentals.
Short-term what?
Short-term rentals. So this would be similar to a motel or a hotel. The units would not move. They would be ground set, and people would rent the trailers like for a weekend. I believe each trailer would have occupancy for up to 2 people. Would have water and sewer. It would not have individual kitchens. The site would have several recreational areas that you can kind of see on the concept plan for the people renting the units.
You just said that these trailers won't have kitchens?
Will not have kitchens in them.
I've never seen, well, go ahead.
So as I mentioned, there will be some recreational areas on the site. There's 2 existing buildings, which I'll go into a little more detail on the property. Both will be preserved. One is proposed to be turned into like an ice cream type shop, and the other one would be potentially a coffee shop. And there would be on-site parking as well.
Mr. Ruggles, do you mind if we ask questions during your presentation? Save them.
Well, I don't mind answering maybe a minor point of, of order or whatever, but usually we do the presentation and then you ask questions at the end.
Okay.
And then as far as the scope of work, because it is within the historic overlay zone, it is appropriate for your commission to review the concept plan and the proposal for Tin Can Alley. Under the code, the HPC may approve what's called a certification of no effect, certification of appropriateness, or a certification of hardship. And I won't go into a lot of detail as to what those are. It is detailed in our zoning code. But after reviewing the language in that section, our historic preservation officer, which is Mr. Osterman, determined that the certification of appropriateness was what should be considered by this commission. So a certification of appropriateness. What is this? This is an approval that is appropriate if the proposed work alters a cultural resource, but does so in such a way that is compatible with the historic or archaeological character of the resource. All major impacts are mitigated, such as the work does not diminish, eliminate, or adversely affect the significance or the integrity of the resource. So, when considering a certificate of appropriateness, there is criteria for approval for the commission to consider. If you were to approve the certificate, the commission would need to find that, one, that the proposed work is consistent with the purpose and intent of the section of the code, that the work is compatible with its context and appropriate for the HOZ zone and the appropriate context of work in an HOZ zone is the significant portions of the property itself, the surrounding properties in the neighborhood, that the cultural resources associated with the proposed work have been sufficiently identified and evaluated. 4 major impacts on the cultural resources are sufficiently mitigated, and 5, that the work is consistent with the applicable development standards and design guidelines of subsection 8, development standards and guidelines of this section of the code. So staff went through each of these sort of questions and made the following findings for the commission to consider. First finding is that the development of Tin Can Alley will help to meet the stated goals and policies of the Kingman General Plan 2030 by attracting tourism, perpetuating and enhancing the Route 66 heritage of the community, creating a sense of place in downtown Kingman while preserving the existing historic fabric of the area. So staff is recommending that the HPC find that the proposed work is consistent with the purpose and intent of the heritage preservation procedures in the code. Finding 2, this specific location did not historically have a trailer park or RV park on it, but such roadside parks were quite common along Route 66 historically. The Mother Road, as it's known, which was the major east-west highway from Chicago to LA from 1926 to 1984, when the last section was bypassed near Williams. So this action will help to enhance the HOZ by recognizing the shared cultural experience of the historic Route 66 for travelers and tourists in Kingman. And we are recommending that the HPC find that the proposed development is contextually appropriate within the historic district. 3, the code talks about the need for a cultural resource study, those which are usually performed by a professional, which would be somebody other than us. Those studies do assess the significance and integrity of potential resources, major impacts that would result from the proposed work, and mitigation measures that could eliminate or offset any major impacts. The section does, however, allow the HPO, our preservation officer, to determine that a cultural resource study is not required due to specific conditions of the site or the scope of work. There are, as I mentioned, 2 buildings on the property. These are buildings that are not currently on the National Register of Historic Places. Therefore, because the proposed development will not directly impact any historically significant properties or resources, HPO has determined that a cultural resource study will not be required. And so we're recommending that the commission concur with this determination that the study will not be required for Tin Can Alley as proposed. And finding 4 is just, is basically finding that because of the discussion in finding 3, that there will be no major impacts on the property and therefore, or on any cultural resources created by this proposal.
Question?
Sure.
The 2 buildings.
Mhm.
One is, what is that stone called? Tofu stone or two?
Well, there is tufa stone, but I'm not sure that that's what's on those buildings, but
okay.
there is tufa
Well, the
stone.
one building is going to remain intact except for replacing the doors and windows. 207 is going to remain intact except for tearing down the addition in the back that smells bad.
Well, I'm going to go through that right now. I'm going to go through the
Okay,
details on the building. So we have within our zoning code design guidelines for historic properties within the historic district, and they provide basic design compatibility guidelines. Exterior changes to existing buildings in any new development should support the patterns of development scale and continuity of other development in the district, and that's known collectively as a context. So the applicant is proposing to, with their Tin Can Alley development, to have neon featured within the development, as well as having an artist mural that would incorporate a Route 66 theme. We feel that that is appropriate because it's documented both historically in the downtown area, and we also currently have, as I mentioned, murals and neon in the downtown area. The stone building at 207 East Anna Devine, according to the assessor records, which are also not always accurate, but it appears that the building is over 100 years old. That building will be preserved and protected. No exterior changes to the building are planned, but it will be fitted with new doors and windows. And this is the one at 207 East Anna Devine. The other building, which is the Print My Pet building, we call it that because of the sign that's still there. This one will have a new, is proposed to have a new facade. The applicants mentioned potentially doing something similar to the MCC building, which is downtown here on Beale Street, with potentially more of an Art Deco type facade. That building was built, again, the assessor records are indicating it was built in 1959. There was a 1978 rear addition. That's the portion that would be demolished because it's not historic and it's not in a good condition. The building will receive new doors and windows. As I mentioned, there will be a facelift to the front facade. Applicants mentioned an Art Deco style. The written description did not detail what that final appearance will be or the building colors. Currently, there are no Art Deco style buildings on Anna Devine, at least within the historic overlay district. As I mentioned, they're more on Beale Street. The bottom of the building does have a stone veneer, although it's not a stone building like the other one is. Staff is recommending that the HPC find that the proposed work is generally consistent with the applicable development standards and guidelines. However, the applicant should use colors on existing and remodeled structures that are appropriate to the existing and proposed architecture, with subtle colors to be used for the body of the building, and then trim colors could be a little bit brighter to provide contrast or definition to the body color. Existing stone materials on the older building at 207 East End Divine should be preserved and not be painted, and that any refacing of the block building at the other building at 217 East End Divine, other than the Art Deco style, is recommended for further review. So if the applicant does move ahead with the project as proposed, it wouldn't necessarily come back in front of the commission. So in the recommendation here, staff is recommending that the Heritage Preservation Commission make a motion to approve a certification of appropriateness for Tin Can Alley at 207 and 217 East End Divine, based on the findings and attaching the following conditions. A, that the applicant shall use colors on existing and remodeled structures that are appropriate to the existing and proposed architecture, with subtle colors to be used for the body of the building, and trim colors providing contrast or definition to the body color. Existing stone materials on the existing building at 207 East End Divine would be preserved and not painted, and any refacing of the facade at 217 East End Divine, other than an Art Deco style, would come back before this body for further review if that were to occur. So that is our recommendation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is also here this evening as well.
What kind of trailers are they planning on putting on there?
These would be Airstream type trailers that from the 1960s or 70s, that would be completely refurbished on the site.
Having owned RVs, I have never seen one without a kitchen. I guess it's possible, but I don't see anything in there if we stipulate there's no kitchen.
So, yeah, I'll add a little bit to that. So essentially what the proposal is that the kitchen areas will be removed. The interior of the trailers will be remodeled, right? And to be closer, I guess, to, what a hotel would be, right? So providing the era of coming and staying for a couple days on Route 66 in what would be an Airstream type trailer, as if you were traveling along. And the reason why there's no kitchens is that inspires the occupants and or renters to come to our downtown, to go to our restaurants, right? And so that's what the idea is behind it, to where it encourages the people that are traveling through to have a place to stay that's kind of vintage, and give you the feel of, oh, hey, yeah, we're traveling along Route 66, which I think is, a pretty good idea. And then also encouraging them to come to our downtown, go through our restaurants, and take advantage of the revitalization that we're trying to make happen here in the downtown.
So this is getting more like the old Route 66 motor courts. They were all over on 66.
Right.
Those were kind of nice, the old motor courts.
Mm-hmm.
Airstream community is huge. They're closed, they're covered. Absolutely kind of nice, They leave their stream at home and stop at this place. Further modification going to be real.
Well, to a certain degree, right? To a certain degree, they'll still have the wheels on them. However, they will be, connected to the ground appropriately, and everything else. They will be ground set. However, the wheels and tires will still be in place to further the look and feel of what you have going on. It's a part of the design.
But they will be plugged into stores.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They'll have their owns their own sewer, their own, well, I mean, it'll be connected appropriately. Up the code and ready to rock and roll.
Did you say it's a two-person occupancy, right?
That's my understanding. They're not very large, so it would just be for two people.
The Airstream itself would be a 40-foot Airstream, so like a 30-foot anyway.
Well, if you look at it, there's no room for those sizes.
I have a question. In front, facing the road, the parking lot kind of goes around it. What is that area besides the parking spaces? There's some little shapes.
I think that's a outside seating area. Perhaps the applicant can answer that question, but I believe that's intended to be an outside seating area for the coffee shop.
Okay.
Mhm.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, they're good.
I had another question about colors. So in A, it had said their trim color could be in contrast to the base color. But you had previously said it could be a brighter color. Which is it?
Well, I think the main colors of the buildings would be more subtle. As you probably know, we've had some issues with colors in the downtown buildings.
Well, even
That-
looking at the Print My Pet right now, how it's a desert color with a pink accent.
Mhm.
I just want to ensure that by a contrast color, you don't mean the trim could be pink or turquoise.
Well, I don't know. That's something you could potentially stipulate in your recommendation, and you probably want to have that conversation with the applicant and see what her intents are.
Yeah, I can
Intentions are.
understand, you, because I'm gonna keep the one building as is, why not try to make the other building compatible to that one? Because you're keeping the block on the one building and just putting new windows in it and everything, which is nice, because that's the old decorative style down there, and if we can incorporate the new building to kind of coincide with it, because there's ways to do that,
Right, or even, yes, if it were
or the colors.
similar colors, I'm sure she has a plan, but I wanted to make sure that that didn't necessarily mean there could be bright, specifically turquoise or pink trim.
There is a palette, right, for.
A color palette.
What's the deco period, Art Deco period, 60s,
Well, Art Deco is more 1920s and 30s.
1920s?
Yeah.
And we do have a palette of colors that are acceptable.
I mean, there were colors at that time that were turquoise and were, the pinks come in more in the 1950s, I think. But again, I might want to have the conversation with the applicant, see what her intentions are. Like I said, we're not real sure what the colors would be. We just had the general comment in there.
Thank you, Rich.
Okay.
I would not be okay with pink or turquoise.
Huh?
Actually, is this the applicant?
Is it? It is, yes.
Could she speak to her color palette?
Sure.
Commissioners, my name is Lenore Knudsen, and I am the applicant for this project. First of all, I want to thank you for allowing me to present Tin Can Alley to you and for your consideration. But most importantly, I'd like to thank you for considering Tin Can Alley to be part of the downtown revitalization project that's going on. There is, I think, a bit of confusion about maybe which building is which and what we're planning on doing. The stone building will receive new windows and doors. It will be preserved as is. There won't be any painting or anything else. It is stone all the way through, and has a concrete floor in it. It's not going anywhere, and the doors can't really be enlarged. The windows can't be enlarged. We'll be using existing openings. One of the things that we've done to make sure that it's still not in violation of any ADA codes is that it will be a walk-up ice cream shop. So there will be no foot traffic inside that building. It's also essentially not capable of having a high degree of foot traffic in it. It's an old building with small entries and 3 steps up to get in it. The other building, which we call the Print My Pet building, just because that's what is painted, does have a horrible color scheme at the moment. We would have no intention of repeating that color scheme anywhere. We will be using desert tones. We'll be picking up some tones from the stone building and using a light contrast, not a stark contrast, and the Art Deco theme. We have architects working on that. To be frank and honest, I, as a community member, I live in Kingman, I've raised my children here, I've lived here and worked here since 2004. And as a private citizen, I am unable to put any more money into design until I have some approvals. I just can't keep sinking money into architects' fees and design fees without getting some traction to go forward. So we are working with an architectural firm for all three projects, Tin Can Alley, the coffee shop, and the ice cream shop. Once we have some approvals, then there will be further specific designs drawn up for that. I can tell you the color palette will be a desert palette. It will be similar to and pulling colors out of the stone building.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. I really appreciate it. I was going to ask if you were a resident.
I've answered that, yes. I am a resident.
That's really well. I say that because I've only been here 8 years, come here for 25 years. I definitely hope that hope year after you open your driving Lamborghini.
That would not be on my bucket list, but I appreciate the sentiment.
I have a question. Do you have a schedule for filling the other vacant?
They have both been rented.
Huh?
You mean,
Oh,
which vacant spots are we talking about?
I believe you have spots here planned for 4 of them, but usually for 4.
Oh, I see. Yes, we just purchased our 5th Airstream, and at this point, they're all completely gutted down to the ribs, floors out, everything out. They are being re-insulated. There'll be a commercial electrician is wiring them. We have commercial plumbers that are redoing all the plumbing. There'll be residential plumbing features in the bathroom, full queen-size beds. All of them are accommodating 2 people at this point. It is, and I think I've mentioned this at each meeting beforehand, it is our goal to find one of the triple axle Airstreams that may be a small family unit with 4 people, like a couple bunks in it and a queen-size bed. They're hard to find in that time period. So we're continually on the hunt for the vintage Airstreams. And then you can also see on the plans that we've reserved one corner for an ADA accessible unit. Would have parking next to it. It would be all decked around it so that it could roll in. We have, again, that would require a wide body unit, which is even more rare. We have people out there hunting for us. But one exciting piece of that project is that we did secure a Pan Am door, which is actually a flip-up gullwing door that will be installed in the Airstream to allow a wheelchair to access it. So
That's your future one? What are you required to meet the ADA?
it would have to be accessible with all the turning ranges that a commercial facility would have to have. So, you know, again, we're gutting all of these down to the ribs and re-insulating and rebuilding. So we would be making adjustments. It's one of the reasons we need a wide body for that one, to be able to make the turning radius. And that we'll be using the gull-wing Pan Am door, opening up instead of out, because all of them have narrow, smaller, almost aircraft-type doors. So that one will, A, we're still in the hunt for the right unit, and B, will require extensive modification. But it's part of the dream.
You're going to be two people.
As I just said, we are, all of them are two people right now. We are hunting for a triple axle that would accommodate like two people and two bunk beds, small family. And so we will continue to hunt for that. If we aren't able to locate it, then it will be, right now they're all 31-foot Airstreams.
One other question. Is this going to be called Tin Can Alley, or is the alley behind it called Tin Can?
Well, if we were going to name the alley behind it, would probably be Mattress Factory Alley, because it's full of mattresses continually, and those mattresses migrate their way to my property now, and we've had a hard time controlling the visitors that are unannounced and unintended. So, yeah, the development itself, the Airstream development, is officially named Tin Can Alley on Route 66. Yeah, yeah, it's a busy working alley.
It was mentioned in this proposal that there's no site neon sign.
That sign is not on our property, it's on the post office property. We hope to incorporate some neon, and will be doing that. Again, we're looking at vintage neon, so it's a little harder to find, and then it has to be refinished. One part of the project that I did not put in writing in the proposal because I'm a little uncertain of the time frame, there is a billboard currently on the property, and that billboard will not be part of the community. I'm in negotiation right now with the billboard company. The previous property owner had signed a 3-year lease, and so I'm in negotiation right now with the billboard company to hopefully eliminate that, to further revitalize downtown and take it back to its roots. I did want to mention something that came up earlier too with respect to the kitchens. We don't see these as trailers for rent. We see these as an Airstream experience that people are going to come and stay at for probably 2, maybe 3 nights if it's a long weekend. To that end, we are encouraging people to think of them, and we'll be very forthright in our descriptions and photos of the Airstreams as we advertise them. This is an experience. They're coming to a hotel room-like setup. It'll have queen-size bed, full residential bathroom, small seating area, water, things like that. Each one will have a little deck, and then there's common recreation space in Tin Can Alley. We are encouraging, consistent with the T5 Main Street zoning district, it's intended to be a walkable, vibrant downtown community, and that's what we're encouraging. So we'll be working with all of the pub and restaurant vendors and owners on Beale Street to make sure that they welcome the Tin Can Alley residents. We're going to be encouraging the Tin Can Alley residents to walk to those restaurants. It is not our intention to encourage people to stay long-term. That's not what this is about. This is, well, I've stayed at a lot of Airbnbs that make the amenities available, but you go to them. They're not served to you.
Well, there's one other thing Tom mentioned in here. It's going to pretty well improve that area for people who don't go through, go around.
This property is visible from the powerhouse and from the new arch, the Route 66 arch, and it will be a significant improvement over what's currently there, which is essentially dilapidated buildings, weeds, homeless people, mattresses, several a week that get hauled out of there, and frankly, I hate to make a record of it, but human feces.
Yep.
I would like to add a stipulation that we read through.
And I'll be honest with you, I will oppose up to the point of withdrawing an application for a couple of reasons. One is, look at what you have. You have an absolutely atrocious building with a horrible mural on it, with a play on words for pimping one's pet. I don't think we want to keep that. I've already pledged to you, and I put in writing that it will be an Art Deco style, very similar to the MCC building. It will be a color palette similar to the Stone building. I want to be able to participate in the facade improvement grant program. In order for me to do that, I need to be able to get 3 bids, get the work done, and submit it. If I have to add layers of approval coming back here each time, then I'm going to be disadvantaged in that process. And it's something that as a community member, I have to get some traction. I have to be able to get this thing moving along. Otherwise, it's not cost feasible to continue to do it. The other point that I want to make, I'm sorry to interrupt, but the other point I want to make is that I have been the long-term owner of 2nd and Oak Street. It's a 100-plus-year-old building. It was built in 1902, and I preserved it. The color palette is consistent with a bungalow of that time period. And if you look at Second and Oak today, it is still in impeccable condition. When it turned 100, I showed it some love and gave it a new roof and have kept it in impeccable condition. So I think I have proven myself as an investor downtown. I have a commercial building and I've had it since 2010. Second and Oak.
I think after you described that it would be desert tones, I'm fine with that.
I am too. I don't think there's any reason for her to have to come back with another color scheme and everything. Yeah. Because she's already said
agree with
she's going to
that
try to
too,
keep
yeah.
it that way. I'm sorry.
That's okay. No, I didn't mean cross talk, yeah. But I mean, I don't have a problem with desert tones either. I could see the point where you wouldn't want to use the same colors as Mr. D's, for instance, because it would just be kind of too matchy.
Right, we want to distinguish ourselves, and this is frankly not catering to a price point where we want it to look loud, cheap, schlocky, or anything else. We want it to look very much like a vintage community that you would have found here back in the day of the motor courts.
That's what I said, because the reason I brought up the motor coach, when I had my business, I had to tear down the last one in 66 right up the street here because it was over-inhabited by the unwanteds.
There is a gravitation towards that, but I also believe that using that property will reduce and diminish the amount of homeless traffic to that area. I mean, certainly homelessness is an issue that every community faces, but I think one of the solutions is to develop the property. And if the longer it's vacant, the more it will be used by people who see an opportunity to seek shelter there. I had a lot of interaction with homeless people that had been camping. There was a little tiny shed on the back of the property that you'll see in some of those pictures that was falling down. And literally law enforcement were there probably twice a week, shagging people out. They're lighting fires, they're trying to stay warm. That is just not the place to do it. It's not safe for the entire downtown community. And it is the antithesis of the T5 Main Street walkable, vibrant downtown community that we're attempting to rebuild here.
Well, I applaud your efforts because it's needed downtown. I've lived here for 32 years and it's well needed, so.
Well, based on her comment that it does say it does give inference to type of a color palette.
Desert colors.
And your argument, and which I like because I was a businessman, you don't want to have to go through this again. I withdraw that requirement for that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
Well, I'd like to make a motion to the effect of what Rich says and Sean says about what's the one that,
I'm going to bring up the slide here. My recommendation is, if you are inclined to approve, would be to make a motion to approve a certification of appropriateness and include the conditions A, B, and C on the slide.
what Rich just said. I'll make a motion to that effect.
Second?
I knew there was something, I couldn't, you
Second?
can't second it.
Huh?
You're the chairman.
I didn't second, I was asking for a
Oh.
second.
Oh,
thought you
I'll
seconded.
second.
You
Yes.
seconded? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? Well, you're quite welcome. Well, thank you.
Good luck in your endeavors.
Thank you. Stay tuned for the progress.
I also withdraw the requirement that you drive a Lamborghini. A Bentley is fine.
Well, maybe she wants one.
Announcement by commission members, limited to announcements, availability or attendance at conferences and seminars, requests for agenda items for future meetings, and requests for reports from staff. All right, do we have any suggestions?
Nothing for me.
Past item, old items, nothing? Okay. fine, then.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I ask for a motion to adjourn, and a question first. Well, go ahead, make a motion to adjourn.
I did.
You did, okay.
I second that motion.
What date are we adjourning to? Do we go back to the original schedule of May?
That would be your next meeting, since this was in lieu of having your March meeting. So the next meeting would be, I don't have a calendar in front of me, would be in the end of, toward the end of May.
Okay. Then we adjourn to May 4th, Wednesday, Tuesday, whatever, Wednesday. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good, thank you. Thank you all, thank you, guys, for coming. Thank you for taking everything down and making us look very professional.